Hello everyone, and this is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling on November 15th, 2012. Overall, I felt like the show was pretty good for the most part. A couple, missteps here and there, and then just also for hopefully seeing further progress in the weeks to come for a few other areas. They started out the show with James Storm coming out talking about becoming the #1 contender. Bobby Roode, of course, comes out. He says a lot of things, a lot of derogatory things, which eventually leads to them to brawling and having a match later that night and the #1 contendership being on the line. RVD, there was also a pretty good match with RVD and Kid Cash for the X Division title. Right now, it seems like they really want to keep the X Division title on RVD, and honestly, I feel that's probably best for RVD and probably best for the X Division title. RVD's a bigger name, and that gives a little bit more prestige to that title, which has been a staple of the company for so many years. So hopefully they'll end up keeping it on for a long period of time, and maybe even leading into him getting a world title shot at the Destination X pay-per-view, but that's still like months away. That plans could definitely change on that one in general. You had a match. You basically had your semi rematch from Turning Point with Eric Young going against Jesse, and this time around, Jesse goes over this time, and obviously, they really want to push Jesse as being more than just like this Hollywood actor who's coming in there. I think they're going to keep him around to actually wrestle a little bit more. He's okay in the ring, but he's nothing spectacular at this point in time. Now, granted, he could definitely continue to advance. I'm still not liking the interaction that him and Tara are having at this point, but his in-ring work is not bad, but it's nothing great yet. And like I said, hopefully he'll advance over the time, and maybe I'll start growing on this one a little bit more. I'm not as annoyed with this pairing with him and Tara as much as I was right at the beginning, but I'm still not fully liking it, or I'm still not fully into their two characters at this point in time. You have, of course, multiple backstage segments with Aces and Eights, with Doc basically defending why he did what he did to Sting and everything. About him wanting to stay in Aces and Eights. They threw another dart, basically trying to come up with their next victim. Obviously, they're still going after Kurt Angle, but they're coming up with someone for tonight to go after. Also, later in the night, they revealed that Doc is remaining in Aces and Eights. I mean, that was pretty much going to be a pretty obvious area, but the segment that they had where it looked like he was going to get kicked out of Aces and Eights, but a guy was standing behind the door with a jacket, it came off pretty well, in my mind, at that point in time. Also, Aces and Eights had a match with Kurt Angle and Garrett Bischoff. Pretty good match again, with this time Kurt Angle and Garrett Bischoff going over on Aces and Eights. Even though Aces and Eights have not really been winning too many of the matches recently, they have been definitely making impacts on the show. And their basic impact was who they were going to attack tonight, which was Magnus. It's pretty obvious that they're going to make this ball-peen hammer, or the hammer that they're always carrying around, be like their mainstay or their main weapon of choice, attempting to take people out. They took out Magnus this week. They hit him over the both kneecaps with the ball-peen hammer, and obviously this is going to be a way for them to write off Magnus for this point. He was going to be going out there for another television title shot. Obviously, that doesn't happen. And this is probably just a way to get him off of TV for a little while as well. You had a #1 contendership match for the Knockouts title. Mickie James came back. Actually, you really had about 3 returns, because you hadn't seen Mickie James, Gail Kim, or Madison Rayne for upwards of at least a month and a half, if not to 3 months in Mickie James' case. So you had a five-person #1 contendership match with that. Mickie James comes out on top. This is probably their best bet. I was kind of shocked they didn't go with ODB in this one, considering the storyline going into coming out of the going into the pay-per-view and coming out of the pay-per-view. You would have figured they would have given ODB a title shot, but no, they're going to give it to Mickie James here. Obviously, Mickie James and Terrence will make a great match whenever they decide to do it. And it was good to see Mickie James and the others come back to the ring as well. I believe this brings up to the main event of the evening, which was actually not really the main event. Another backstage segment that they had, or a couple backstage segments. You had, of course, Joseph Park having his backstage segment with Hulk Hogan, trying to become more of a wrestler now. I think they're actually trying to do almost a full circle here with Joseph Park and bringing him back to the Abyss character versus just being Joseph Park, the lawyer who isn't a trained wrestler, into, back into the Monster Abyss. Maybe that's where they're going, or maybe they're just trying to turn Joseph Park into a wrestler in general. Austin Aries, of course, also had a very good backstage statement with Jeff Hardy talking over the pay-per-view match. Of course, Austin Aries gives him respect, but says he's not done with Jeff Hardy, and says for next week's open fight night he's going to be calling somebody out. And he knows how to push the right buttons to get what he wants. We'll see what that ends out coming out to be next week. And now this leads into the main event of the night, which was, of course, James Storm and Bobby Roode, the number one contendership on the line again. And in all honesty, the match itself wasn't a bad match. It wasn't as long as most of their other matches have been. My biggest gripe with this match and we'll see where they go with this after in the upcoming weeks. But, they had Bobby Roode win. They had him now as the number one contender to the world title for the next pay-per-view, which is from Resolution. I'm kind of hoping that they turn it into a triple threat match now, because, what was the point of having James Storm win at the pay-per-view if he loses that number one contendership the next show? It gives almost no point to that. It gives almost no point to that match outside the fact that AJ Styles is not going to have a world title shot going into next year's Bound for Glory at any point in time. And now you just flip-flop the person who's going to have the number one contendership. They could have just, if they don't decide to make it a triple threat in any way, shape, or form, they should have probably just had Bobby Roode win it at the Turning Point pay-per-view instead of having James Storm do it and then do a flip around for Impact Wrestling at that point in time. Also, AJ Styles promo after the whole pay-per-view and him losing and everything was an extremely well done promo by him. And also, having Kaz and Daniels come out there just had a little bit more added effect to it. Obviously, it's going to lead into at least one more match with AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. Obviously, that's where they're going to go. This will be the next thing for AJ Styles. You'll have this one more match, and then he'll probably continue on with whatever he's going to do for the next year until he can attempt to go for the World Heavyweight title again. Overall, like I said, I felt it was a pretty good show. It had, in my mind, it had some ups, it had some downs into it, but also, you want to see where they want to go with some of these areas into the upcoming weeks and going into their next pay-per-view. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully the world title situation kind of turns into a triple threat there, so they don't make the Turning Point match almost seem pointless at this point. But we'll see where they actually go with that. That's my review this week for TNA Impact Wrestling. I thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed.